Welcome to No Hits Radio, where we dive deep into the uncharted waters of technology.
Good morning, everyone. This is Cynthia, and welcome to the Morning Express show on No Hits Radio. Today, we are very delighted, number one, because of the guest that we are having today in the show. And of course, I'm very, very delighted and happy to have you guys join us for this conversation. The conversation of today is on the topic of the corporate AI race. And we're going to look at the future of AI in workplaces. And joining me for this conversation is none other than Michael Michie, founder of Everse Technology, also co-founder. Is it co-founder or founder?
Both co-founder.
Co-founder and founder of Akilizetu Foundation. He's a podcaster. And I know most of the people know him as Mtu wa AI. And he's going to clarify that in just a minute. Are you Mtu wa AI? Who's Michael Michie?
I'm a lot of things, but I think just a spirit that loves technology, expresses that through a lot of building, trial and error, video games, artificial intelligence, trying to make tech work outside the media briefings.
What about Mtu wa AI?
I'd say yes. That's probably one simple way of putting it. I think within that space, I do wear quite a bunch of hats. There's obviously Everse Tech that's focused on AI infrastructure, and there's Akilizetu, a non-profit focused on AI for Africa by Africa. I'm also part of Kenya's AI research team. I think we're the first, actually Kenya being the first country in Africa to join national AI safety institutes. Mm-hmm. So also glad to be part of that research group. I also do my own research. I'm trying to build my own AI tools. So I'm put my hands in quite a few things around AI for most of my time because I was introduced to AI through video games.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast, Mind and Machine Africa.
Mind and Machine Africa is a podcast that comes from Nia's Akilizetu Foundation. Mm-hmm. And what I do on that podcast is just look for people within Africa to talk about AI, what they are planning, what their thoughts on AI, what the organizations are doing with AI, what the organizations hope to do with AI, what they hope AI's impact would be for Africa. Also trying to dispel a lot of fear around the technology and just to get more people on board and interested in the technology, interested in using it, interested in improving themselves with the tool, interested in the impact the tool would have for society and also for them financially.
I'm going to start with just what you were talking before the live about dyslexia. And I mentioned that you're very passionate about dyslexia. Why is that?
So I'm passionate about dyslexia and mental health because I was diagnosed with dyslexia and I also have ADHD. For me, dyslexia was a bit of a learning challenge. Mm-hmm. I was a fairly good performer, I think well above average, but I struggled with certain subjects and certain exams. But I felt that I understood everything. My attention was a bit off. And that's when I started thinking maybe I do have ADHD. But it took me about 2 years ago is when I got my clinical diagnosis for ADHD. But for dyslexia, as soon as I came across that, I do have it, explains my challenges in writing, spelling, sometimes how I would talk either too fast or switch between thoughts without even noticing. We'd be on one topic. I have finished it in my head before I've spoken it and moved on to something else. And I'm struggling to see why people aren't keeping up with my thoughts.
And how was it in school? Like, did the teachers notice or your classmates?
No one noticed, honestly. I got a lot of, what is it called? I won't say bad blood, but it wasn't easy because the teachers, I don't think at that time was skilled enough to detect that I had dyslexia. So I did struggle with Swahili in particular, mm-hmm. and even with English, especially when it came down to writing the compositions, writing inshas, those ones I struggled with a lot of spelling errors. The stories were there, the stories were creative, but the errors were so many and I couldn't figure it out why. When I got to high school, I tried to figure out why. By the time I was in campus, I was a bit self-conscious and decided not to write notes on paper, but prefer typing. At least autocorrect will remove that self-consciousness that I had grown into. But over time, I have found myself, even nowadays, I do walk around with at least a pen and a book, a pen and paper, just in case I feel the urge to write, just to at least, just practice makes perfect.
Yeah. And does the practice work?
It does. Sometimes there's some things which I need to write down. Like I feel if I type them as opposed to writing them, there's a different way my mind interprets it. Sometimes I need to see it as disorganized in my mind as it is on paper, and so I would write something down, and that tends to stick more than when I have to put it on a digital form, because then everything will be neat, justified, the same font, very clean. So sometimes for my rough thoughts, ideas, those ones I prefer them on paper.
By the time you've achieved a lot by now, there's a time you are in the under 40 class of CIOs. You won an award of under 40, and being someone who has had dyslexia for a very long time, how would you talk to people who have the same issue and they're calling it a challenge and they can't manage to do what they want to do right now?
So I would say probably I was fortunate enough that while I was not diagnosed early enough, at home I think I was well shielded by my folks and how they took care of me. My dad in particular was focused on my STEM results, which were a lot easier to get A's in than English or Swahili. So he was happy with that. So I didn't feel that pressure, only felt it at school. My mom was number one cheerleader, get an E in Swahili. She'll cook your favorite meal. She'll motivate you. So I also got used to failure quite early, because then there's always someone to help pick me up, and that's not the end of it. But I think they they didn't know as well, but they built that system around me, and that system really helped help me work through the dyslexia, and I guess also the ADHD, because it was there for quite some time, but only got diagnosed 2 years ago, and I decided I think I need a clinical diagnosis so that I can pick the right steps, either therapy or medication, moving forward.
All right, that's quite amazing, and honestly, I am happy for you, and I wouldn't have thought that something like this can make someone from it. And I want us now to go into the conversation of the day about the corporate AI race, and I want us to start broad. Globally, the battle has always been between the Western and the Asian countries. Where does Africa lie in this?
We shouldn't be in that race. I usually say, when everyone is coming up with a model to benchmark on, to say that we are here, and that people are here, I don't think that should be Africa's concern. If that's our target, it's a target we can't reach yet. We have to be true to some of our limitations in terms of infrastructure, in terms of capacity, even in terms of data. So for us, it's not a race of getting the highest score on a benchmark. I think for us, ours is getting the most impact out of as much as we can grab in the AI space. So whether it's building better localized models or bringing in infrastructure within a country to make compute cheaper or more accessible, I think that's what we strive for, as opposed to joining the benchmarking race.
So we shouldn't sit in tables where we are having the Western, Asian, and maybe African countries talking about the AI.
We should be in those tables talking. From AI is one of those technologies now that has a lot of geopolitics involved in it, and we should be involved in those tables internationally speaking, joining in. But from model development, I don't think we should be rushing to say, "Oh, we got a 98%." And OpenAI's model got 97, and DeepSeek has a 97 point something, and we're finally number one. Then 6 months or 3 months later, another model comes out, and now we're like, we don't have that capacity yet. Maybe we get there, but I don't think that should be our focus. Shouldn't be releasing models that get benchmarked really high. I think our application of the technology and its impact on our continent is what we should strive for as something to aim for.
Do you think people are looking at it in that perspective?
Well, different countries have different...
Africa at
within
large.
Africa at large. I believe there's something in the Africa Union around AI that they're forming, either a council or some AI body. But then even within Africa, we have about 16 countries that have developed AI strategies, policies, or such national documentation. So there is that drive for it, that, AI is here, it's an important technology, it can do a lot of good, let's plan on how to use it. And I think that's a good start for anyone to come up with a policy or a strategy. Obviously, not regulation.
Why not regulations?
Why would you want to start regulating something you barely know? I feel like if you want to regulate the use of AI, because it's not big enough for it to contribute, I think, even 1% of any African country's GDP. So at this early stage, why bother regulating? If we are net consumers of the technology, if you have consumer protection acts, go amend those for AI. As in, just don't waste public resources building a regulation, a bill, a law that eventually is going to make it more complicated for AI to thrive, to grow naturally, or to catalyze.
I want you to keep that thought on hold, because you're going to come back on the regulations and the policies, and we're going to be remembering what you've just told us right now when we come to back later on in the show. At what age did you get to hear about artificial intelligence? Not age, sorry. Which year did you first hear about artificial intelligence?
I was in class 6, so that would make me, I don't know what age that is.
Which year?
Early teens. I think that was 2003. Yes, 2003.
2003 was the first time you heard about AI.
Yes. Okay, I heard about it earlier through movies, but my first interaction was in 2003.
Wow. And I was at a summit last week, and someone was asking a question to the panel, and they were talking about AI as an emerging technology. Is AI still an emerging technology?
Yes. So emerging technologies, I don't believe in a single definition. I believe emerging technology has characteristics, which is its rapid growth and acceptance and its novelty. And AI has those too. Cloud has those, blockchain has that, robotics, AR. So all those ones, and they've been around for a very long time. The technologies, some of them are 100 years, others are close to 100, others in 70, 80 years old. But right now, we found a situation where the technology is developing very fast. So a lot more strides are being done, not just in its development, but also in its use, which then those characteristics allow it to be called an emerging technology. But we shouldn't consider emerging technology as new and upcoming. It's just now more rapid in its change. It's been accepted more, and its impact, you can see that it has exponential impact capability.
Why are people still calling it new?
I don't know. I guess there's some things which are new. Transformers are new. Well, newish, I guess. Reinforcement learning or some forms of reinforcement learning are slightly new. So some methodologies have been improved, and those new methodologies that have been derived from the old methodologies are new. Applications of those technologies are new. Before ChatGPT, the best AI chatbot I'd encountered was Dungeon AI, which was just a chat simulator kind of video, or just chat simulator game on the phone. And that was a powerful chatbot. Then OpenAI released ChatGPT 3. Before then, there was ChatGPT 2, which was amazing. It was a very amazing model, and I think people should look at the story of ChatGPT 2 because it does set the foundation for OpenAI and reinforcement learning and a lot of other tools of the trade that then gave us ChatGPT 3.
From what I'm getting from you is that the technological advancements are what that is making artificial intelligence new.
Yes, because back in...
But do we define artificial intelligence as just a technological advancement, or artificial intelligence is just an emerging technology on its own?
It has the characteristics of an emerging technology. So it is an emerging technology.
Yes.
It is also something that's been researched for a very long time.
True.
And now we have the infrastructure and the tools capable of taking some of that research and applying it. And now we get to see the results of that. GPUs have been here for quite some time. I remember when I started playing video games very actively, and I had my first GPU, and that was like, it was such an amazing sensation to own that GPU. Like, I worked, really saved up the money, bought the GPU, and now the graphics on my video games had improved. And that same technology is now powering AI training. So the two technologies have been there. Then somehow down the line, because of the GPU's capacity to do parallel computing, we ended up in a situation where we can actually do more with GPUs than with CPUs. But then Google had their own TPUs for the longest time ever, and that's what they've been using for their AI models, Gemini, their search engine, their Google Maps, all do their inferencing on TPUs. So
you're still not clarifying my question.
Sorry.
You mentioned I asked about is artificial intelligence still new? And your definition was the technological advancement in the artificial intelligence are what is new.
Yes.
But now the AI itself, should we still call it as something new?
Yeah, if someone has built something that wasn't there and it's come out now, that's new. The field of artificial intelligence is not new. DeepSeek is new, Quen is new, Llama 4 is very new. All this agentic AI is new. So all those ones are new tech. They're new, but they're all part of a body that is artificial intelligence, a field of study that has been there for quite some time.
Now you've answered my question. Yes, now we are together. Okay. Let's look at the public perception of artificial intelligence. According to your view, how are the public perceiving artificial intelligence?
I think there are those who are excited about it. There are those who are scared. And there are those who are very pessimistic. I've been fortunate enough to see people go through those different phases. I've also gone through those phases. I was excited to see what when ChatGPT 3 blew up, and I went to sign up, and then signed up, and I was like, okay, wow, this is amazing. Did a few chats. Asked it, one of the first things I remember asking it was my name and does it know me? And it was like, it doesn't know me. And I was like, I'm strained off the internet. If I Google, I can see a few photos of myself. I didn't pick any of my social media profiles. But then I didn't even start to worry about its capabilities, because at that stage, it was just something I could chat with. To me, it felt similar to AI Dungeon. Then people started asking it complex questions. Do this, help me with this, write this in this way, and you're like, it's a tool. Then you start hearing cases of the tool is being abused. Then you get nervous about its application. There are people, and it's an interesting time, because I remember I spent some weekends with my brother, at least one day in a weekend, and we talk and we do some tech. We have tech conversations, and we talk about what we are building. We exchange a bit of knowledge. And he was very skeptical around artificial intelligence for some time. And he had very good reasons around that. I remember we had a huge conversation around just the word intelligence and what does that really mean? Are they intelligent? And for some time, I actually accepted that there is no intelligence. And purely from a philosophical point of view, I was like, if it's going to be intelligent, it should know what it knows and know what it doesn't know, which is called the theory of knowledge or epistemology. I was like, okay, so if AI models lack the theory of knowledge, then I would simplify them as very good guessing machines. Then recently we've seen reasoning models come out which simulate thinking. And again, then that challenged my philosophical beliefs. But then I've been in places where people are like, AI is taking my job tomorrow. Like, what can I do? And someone will actually tell you their job, and they're like, I know I spend 10 hours doing this thing. The AI has done it in 40 minutes. And they're like, I could be replaced. But I'm like, you take 10 hours for one client's work, you're taking 40 minutes, you almost have 12 more clients you can squeeze in now. So that to me was more of an opportunity than a threat.
But the work you don't mind about the person's work and their fear.
So with every industrial revolution, there's been an introduction of new jobs, of certain unique changes in society. And no industrial revolution has caused more job layoffs than it has created new jobs. There are new jobs that will be created. When over the past few years, we've seen prompt engineering become a real skill that companies are willing to pay for. And it's just people who know how to interact, how to write the right question or the right prompt to a model to get the right response. People are being paid for that. That job wasn't there. It has been created. We'll see more new jobs come about. And that's where maybe people will focus on. There are some jobs which would obviously go away.
Do you have like a specific way you can tell you can prompt ChatGPT to do your work or to answer a certain question?
So prompt engineering is quite diverse. So you could do one-shot prompting, one question, get an answer. You can do chained prompting where it's a series. You can do compound prompting where you build upon. So you take it step by step as you increase the workload. Get it to step 1, move to step 2, move to step 3. You can prompt one model to give you give one model your idea, ask it for a prompt, take it to another model, have that model, have a different model give you a result. I found that to be the best. So I work with multiple models. I give a bunch of them my idea, ask it for, give me a prompt. I'm going to go prompt my AI assistant. And they all give me the prompts. I look for the one which feels the most concise, the most detailed. I take that, I then give that to the AI model.
Wow.
Give them to maybe 2-3 different other models. I've sort of exchanged their prompts. And then I get the results. I still work on them. So it takes time. It's not as fast as sometimes you have an idea and you're like, oh, I can do this in 10 minutes. But you end up spending the first 10 minutes designing the prompt.
How many years have you been in the AI space?
I'd say since 2003. Since I started gaming, I remember one of the first video games I asked about AI was Mortal Kombat. And when I was playing Mortal Kombat, I was like, okay, how does it know when to block? Because it would just, we are 2, it's a 1v1, I'd be attacked. And I think that's very easy to tell the computer to. There's an enemy, fight. But when does it choose? But when it started blocking, I was like, how did it know I was going to punch? And then I started playing another game called Fear. And this is the one that now that just pushed me into AI completely. So it's first encounter, assault, then recon. And the NPCs, the non-playable characters because there was no difficulty setting in this game. You couldn't choose easy, medium, or hard. You start playing and the game would adjust based off of how you're playing. And also, if you come up with an unfair playing style, it would then redistribute that. So you'd go into a room and you're used to doing headshots on your opponents. Now they start wearing helmets. They start flipping tables over to seek cover. So I was like, okay, the computer is changing. The game is changing how it's playing against me. And I started asking my cousin, who at that time was the only place I could go along with my brother to play video games, and started explaining to us NPCs and the small AIs that run them. And that got me and my brother interested also into programming. So at that same time, it was an introduction to video games and computer programming. And that just kind of took off. Obviously, a lot of it, for some time for me, AI just became research, just reading papers, seeing what's been put out. It wasn't really something I was interacting with. Only until I get my hands on a video game and there's a new game engine. It has this new AI capability for the NPCs to make the game more realistic, to make the game less repetitive, less obvious. And I buried myself in video games because that's where I could get AI from.
Did you find yourself at any point not believing AI?
Now, I've had my doubts about not AI per se, but the claims around AI. So I have very strong doubts around AGI and SI.
What's that?
Artificial General Intelligence and Super Intelligence. I think the timelines we have are, in my opinion, unrealistic. They're not impossible. It's not impossible for us to achieve them. I do hope we can achieve AGI and SI purely for humanity's own benefit. Where we have additional cognitive power, then we can do more good with that. Where we have SI, super intelligence, and that could then even help us unlock more things beyond our own capacity. But then timeline-wise, I feel like that's more of a media campaign and obviously driven by other financial reasons than it is the actual research. And there are papers out there that show the research that are on both sides of the fence. We're going to get there in 2 years. We're going to get there in 10 years. So my doubts personally are just, I doubt the timeline for when we'll achieve some of these things.
How do you think AI is going to be transforming the corporate side of work in maybe, let's say, like 5 years?
I think it's already transforming, but in 5 years, I think we'll see a lot of agentic AI systems within organizations. Companies really missed out, or some companies had missed out on robotic process automation. I think now with agentic AI and complex tasks, a lot of that can be given up to AI. So prototyping, design, initial designs for innovations or new ideas, new products, new services, a lot of that can be done quite easily and a lot faster with AI. AI for research assistants, I think that's going to be a huge area to transform organizations, helping them with R&D. Actually making it cheaper for a lot of companies don't have R&D.
What's R&D?
Research and development. They don't have a budget or they don't have a department for that because no one wants a department where you just throw money at and it doesn't give you anything back. So,
but companies are investing in cybersecurity. And at what point do you know that your data company is going to be breached?
So if I look at it this way, you'd rather invest in the cybersecurity than deal with the repercussions of not investing in it. But if you ask a company to invest in R&D, and they have to accept the fact that they could have this department or this budget item in their books for 15, 20 years and have nothing come out of it, are they willing to do that? When it's in the cybersecurity, it happens and something almost happens or something happens to someone else or nothing happens or something is happening globally and you're like, glad I'm not part of that mess. Glad I'm safe. So you're buying that safety with cybersecurity. I think with R&D, there's the uncertainty of, will I develop something? Will it be beneficial to the organization? Are we just throwing money down the drain? And if times get hard, isn't that one of the first places you'll cut money on? Would be R&D. But I'd love to, because this is now making R&D a lot cheaper, because now you'd pay a few dollars in some dollars. Others you'd pay a few cents on the dollar for access to very advanced reasoning models that can help you fast track your research and development. So I hope to see a lot more research and development. I hope to see a lot of back office process being automated, and maybe some businesses will shift to being more front office, because a lot of people in back office will need to be moved. And some of them would end up in front office, because you still also have to accept the fact that you may want to transform how your business works. Your customers may not want that transformation. An example I like to give that we discuss quite a lot is when you have a power outage and you call and you dial KPLC, or even if you dial Safaricom, there's the option of the automated press this to report this. And you're told, press this to report a power outage. You keep quiet until you hear, press 0 to speak to an agent. And you press 0, you speak to that person and you're like, I want to report an outage. My meter number is, and you're like, please send me the reference number. You could have done the same through the automated system. But maybe you chose to listen to hear someone's voice. You call your bank over an attempted fraud, you'd want someone to hear your case as opposed to just getting onto a system and responding to a few questions. So there's also that change within society that could take some time, or if society accepts, it could happen very quickly. But change at a macro level does take its time.
Okay.
You need something, a huge, significant thing to make that change happen.
So what challenges are we looking at? I've had an experience where I was trying to use my voice in the chat GPT, and it was telling me, I cannot hear what you're saying. I don't understand what you're saying. Please hold as I try to understand what you're saying. And I decided to hold as they said, but I never got a response.
So some challenges obviously we'd face is just the training data. If it's not fully representative, it does bring certain challenges. For example, voice. You may want ChatGPT to respond. You may want to use a voice model, any of the voice models out there, and you find maybe it is cost effective to use them, but all of a sudden, all your agents sound very Caucasian. And your agents also now are struggling to understand Swahili, or when someone mixes Swahili and English. But that's just purely back to the training data. Did they use enough African voices or enough languages represented? So that's probably why you faced that challenge. But there are quite a lot of challenges for Africa, not just data. I think for us, the data is, we do have a lot of this data. I tend to say it's the findability and the readiness of this data to be used. There's a lot of data collected by companies, collected by government. And I remember when we were working on the national AI strategy, we were looking at data was one of the challenges that needed to be overcome, and we gave recommendations around that. But during also that research, we learned there's a lot of data out there. And sometimes that data sits in silos and no one wants to give out the data.
Is our data actually stored in Kenya?
Some data is stored in Kenya, some data is not stored in Kenya. You have a Gmail account, your data is obviously sitting in some server elsewhere. You have a Microsoft account, that data is sitting elsewhere. You take data off of your database that you say should only sit in country, and I email it across to someone else. That data has gone to the cloud, has gone somewhere else. Yes, you still have your copy there, but now you have a copy out that you need to worry about its protection and everything. So I'm not big on the whole boundaries in terms of how data should be used.
Yes.
Like cloud technology has been something that has been there for a very long time. And I feel like it's absurd, my personal opinion, to just sort of put these very rigid regulations around data mobility. Because you can secure data in transit, you can secure data at rest. I think it's more of the protection of data that should be. You shouldn't just say data can't leave my geographical boundary. But when it's on WhatsApp, it has left. When it's on X, it has left. And all these companies have come, and some of these companies have set up content distribution centers within Africa because of the amount of data that we need to consume and the amount of data we also generate for their services. So Africa is a huge data mine. It's actually, we run the risk of becoming a data colony during all these AI battles between nations and these large corporations, is that a lot of human data is the best form of data. So human-created data is the best form of data to train AI models on. Synthetic data is good for training, but you have to worry about what errors you're introducing. You have to constantly monitor the effects of the synthetic data on the model you're training. But with human data, at least you're close enough to the real thing, and it has better results. What place is going to generate the most data other than a continent that has the youngest population, that's going to have some of the largest cities, I think in about 28 to 30 years, that's going to have the largest workforce globally around that same time, 28 years from now. The data will be churning out. It's going to be immense. It's going to be a lot. So I don't think we have a data problem as such. It's just the findability and the usability. Data is stored in books. Data is stored poorly. Data is stored in silos. And no one wants to let go of their data. A classic example is I was speaking to an organization around some data that I was asking or helping them build a use case for artificial intelligence. And asked them, do you have this data? They're like, oh, we'll get it from the outlets we sell in, because they sell their brands across multiple chains of supermarkets. And they went to a very popular one, a very large one in the country. And they're like, oh, can you get the data about when our product, because the data that they are given is your stock is depleting, it's at this much, you should restock. They asked for the data of, do we know when our product is being bought, what time, which days are our product being bought the most, what is brought alongside our product. Data that should be available to them. So the company turned around and told them, yeah, we can give you, we have the data. Here's a quote for it if you'd like. So everyone has data, but immediately you ask someone for the data, they realize, oh, my data is valuable, and they want to put a price on it. And that pricing, the value of data, is very difficult to do.
Yes.
You may hold data that you collect unintentionally as part of your own processes, but you do not use and you're storing, and then someone asks you for that data. And now you're like, I need to figure out the value of this data that I don't use so that I can sell it to you to use. And that also now creates a lot of those challenges of data exchanges and all that.
I have actually listened to you saying that do not fear to feed ChatGPT your data. Do you want to tell me my data is not valuable? Or when these large language models train data, is my data not at risk?
It depends what's at risk. So personal identifiable information is always going to be at risk. If you're going to give any, not particularly just ChatGPT, but with all AI models, you run the risk, if you've not read the terms and conditions, will your chats be used to train the model again? So will that information be exposed? Or are your chats secured and the company won't use them to train the model, nor will they look at the contents of those conversations? If that's the case, then I think we should be fine. But the reason why I would say that is people have put more content, more of their personal information on social media than they have put even on AI models. You're worried about telling an AI model the name of your company, you're like typing out a question about where you work, and like I work at No Hits Radio, I'm creating a show for XXXYZ.
Yes.
You want to be as vague as you want with that prompt so that it doesn't know who you are, where you work. But at the same time, you'll take a selfie, post it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, on your WhatsApp, and that becomes public information. So there's some information we think is personal, but we've already, through social media, made it very public. In that case, I don't see the harm in putting it out there. In any case, maybe that information could be already in these models to be trained on, depending again on the terms and conditions you had with the social media site. Can they give this data to a third party? And if you've given out the consent for that, why you've given out consent on this side, then here you're refusing, but half your life is
it's on the social media.
Yeah. So in that case, then I think you could give the same details on social media that you could give to the model.
So it's more like reading the terms and agreements put in place.
Yeah, when DeepSeek first came out, its terms and conditions are quite unique. And a lot of Western media was quick to point that out, that their terms and conditions are not as favorable as OpenAI's, where they did say that they would look at your keystrokes. They do not look, but they said they might look. And some security engineers tested. Keystrokes are not being logged, but they said they would look. They might look. They have the capability to look at that. It was also said that within their terms and conditions that their data, that your prompts and the inferences from those prompts will be used to train the model again, that the company has access to those. I think there was one, I don't know if it's how valid this one is, but they own a piece of the intellectual property you create using their model. So if you come up with a business idea or you build something new, a new invention that you can get a patent on or a business idea on, there's a stake for them.
What do you think about that?
It's business. You set your terms and conditions. Consumers have Consumer Protection Acts to protect them. They have the capability to read terms and conditions so as to to pick the right tool. So sometimes the most powerful tool could be the best tool to use, but its terms and conditions could limit your organization from touching it.
All right. Right about now, we are going to take a short, quick break. When we come back, we'll be taking a deep dive into the AI strategy that Michael Michie participated in, and the more conversation on the corporate AI race. Welcome back. We still have our guest, Michael Michie, an AI consultant, and he's taking us through the corporate AI race. Michie, where are we when it comes to robot colleagues?
We're almost there. I think we've been sort of there. I got a very interesting reminder about robot colleagues from my dad when he was reminding me about the clip art that would be on Microsoft Office, I think 2000, and some of those older versions where there was a paper clip that would come and it'd be like, how can I help? I tried to do this and that. So those kind of assistants have been there. And now we are seeing more powerful assistants. We are seeing assistants that can carry content from multiple applications. So you join a Teams call, it summarizes, it writes everything, it emails you the details of that. Before the next call, it brings up the previous minutes, the insights, the to-do points, and like, this is what you should be discussing. These are the recommendations for this call. There are a lot of nice assistants out there, coding assistants, the GitHub Copilot, Google's coding assistant. There are quite a bunch of unique, different assistive tools that we could use. I think it makes work better. It makes work a lot easier than having to spend like another half an hour Googling how do I create this formula, especially if you're stuck in Excel, or trying to figure out, spending just your own time trying to think of the right way to respond to an email or how to start writing a certain paper for your organization. You can just have a very quick AI assistant and just help you through that process.
Are we moving fast in this corporate AI race, not understanding what artificial intelligence is all about?
Well, I think corporates are fearful of AI. I've seen a few corporates in Africa, in Kenya, in Kenya in particular, that their first move for artificial intelligence was, we need to protect our corporate data from leaking. So block all links through the firewall to any AI tools that we could think of. And the first reaction I had for that was, well, that works fine, but it's not like I leave my work brain at home. This isn't severance. So I will go home with unfinished work. I have my own personal ChatGPT account and I will use it. And at that time, actually, there was a time, I think before 2023, if I'm not wrong, of April or May, ChatGPT's policy was that whatever data you use on the free version, whatever information you put on the free version will be used to train the model again. That data was not protected. And even on API for some time, and then they updated their terms and conditions and they secured anything that goes to API is secured. Anything that goes through the paid account is also protected from them using it to retrain their model.
Was that not a way of them trying to make people to purchase the paid version?
It's obviously, they're an enterprise. I guess they would get more money from enterprises. So securing enterprise data does make an enterprise want to work with them. So it could have been a business decision. It could have been a trust and safety decision. I think it was a good decision nonetheless. Their motivations and other organizations having similar policies, those motivations, I think, have worked out for them.
Yes, I want to get into deepfake, and it has become more sophisticated. What ethical boundaries should companies put in place to protect themselves
from deepfakes?
Yes.
So this is one of those topics which I talk about, and then I'm usually like, I hope no one is listening. Deepfakes have been there for forever.
Yes.
Yeah. We've had fake news, we've had fake media, fake stories. A lot of fake things come out.
Yes.
I think the only difference we have with this particular technology is the ease of creating a deepfake, and obviously the impact that it has because it looks so real. One, I think the term deepfake doesn't do justice to the term, to what this technology can do is a harmful thing. Because a deepfake with the word fake sort of implies there is no lasting damage. But if a deepfake of you is created saying something or doing something that goes against your own beliefs or your company or the status quo or whatever, you find reputational damage is already done. Whether that item is proved to be fake or not, damage has already happened. So I think as a term, deepfake, I think that term may need to change in the future or may not change, but I think we do need to take it a bit seriously because it does have some serious implications. In terms of protecting yourself as individuals, as corporations, it's critical thinking. I have thought of, I remember we were sitting down with a friend of mine and we wanted to write an article. We actually started writing a book with my co-founder at Niazaki Lizetu on prompting. And we finished the book, about 30-something pages. And a few months later, we were like, we actually might have to rewrite this thing because there are new styles of prompting and now we have this type of models. So, and even with the deepfakes, the same thing happened. I was writing a paper to help people figure how to detect deepfakes. Seeing words such as delve into in AI or deep dive.
Nourishing.
There are certain keywords you could see that you could tell this is written by AI. In images, you could see that everyone had the same eyes. Everyone had the same facial expression.
I have actually never noticed that.
The hands look a bit different or they're not anatomically accurate. But all those tips have changed. The delve thing was a thing I used to see in ChatGPT and Claude at the start of 2024. I haven't seen it this year. It's not writing to me the word delve. When I take content and I try to put it on an AI detector, one detector tells me 80% AI, another one tells me human, another one will tell me 60% AI, another one will tell me 90% AI. It's getting harder and harder to tell if content is AI generated or not, because the technology will improve to be as human-like as possible. And as we get there, the only tool we will have, unless these companies accept to put transparency watermarks to say that this content is AI generated. And that was actually some of the recommendations we put in the Media Council guidelines. So I also sat on a technical working group for the Media Council of Kenya, where we're looking at the use of artificial intelligence within media houses.
It's actually it's nice that you've been mentioned about the media aspect of it all, and we are having. Let's talk about the authenticity in communication. Instead of me using my mind to write an article, I go to ChatGPT or whichever AI platform I choose to use and prompt it to give me an article, and it gives me an article. As a writer, should I go then and say that this article was purely generated by artificial intelligence, or should I say that this article was written by me?
I think if you went and just said, give me so for example, you come up with a set of questions to ask during this, our particular session. And if you already went and asked ChatGPT, I'm going to be meeting someone who works in the field of AI. Give me a series of questions for the next that I could use to discuss during the next 1 hour. I think that one you must disclose because you've not, it was just a simple prompt. You've not really
given more information.
More information, as in it's a one-shot thing.
Vague.
You've taken and pasted.
Yes.
I think that one you have to. With images, with video, I believe there's no other workaround, especially in the media space. If you, as a media house, if you decide to, maybe you had an eyewitness, and the eyewitness told a story, but there's no cameraman, so you captured only the audio. And you want to use AI to recreate the footage the same way used in these historic set pieces and documentaries, they do reenactments, but they write it's a reenactment. So you also do the same. Use AI to generate, to take this person's story and turn it into something to put on your primetime news slot. But indicate to people that this is AI-generated content. Put the watermark that runs throughout the entire footage, or have it stick there as the way you have your channel logo, have that AI content logo. So I think that works, but I think we have to be responsible into disclosing how much AI is helping us. If you're an expert in your field and you ask AI a very detailed, complex question, a very good enough prompt, and you receive an answer that helps you into a process, maybe you don't need to disclose. Maybe it only helped you with something. Maybe I think it depends on the volume of the work that AI does. If it does 90%, maybe say. If it does 30%, maybe there's some leeway. But it's still very subjective. I think organizations would choose how much to say. Is something is AI generated or AI helped.
Do you think if I was to say that my work was generated by artificial intelligence, maybe 90% of it was generated by artificial intelligence, would someone not consider me stupid?
Do you consider someone... That's a very good question. Because, okay, let me phrase this in a less aggressive... I don't know. I find it absurd that we've had technologies in the past help us.
Yes.
And we've been fine with those technologies. And everyone can use them. Cars came about, you were like, horses are not fast enough. No one is I'm not going to get on a horse from my home, then leave the house with a horse, then secretly switch to a car, get to Tatu, get onto a horse, so that I walk in and I'm like, yeah, my horse is very fast. I don't use this newfangled technology.
What an example.
Yeah, because I think if you're using the technology, anyone who considers you, who tries to diminish your work for using this technology, I think they're the ones with the problem, not you. You are taking advantage of a tool to be more efficient, to improve the quality of your work. I don't see what's wrong with that. And if you're an expert in your field, so software developers, there's a lot that has been said, even with the founder of Anthropic, who said 90% of code by end of this year will be AI generated. I think there was a report for 2024 that by August or October of 2024, that all new code that was put on GitHub, 40% of it was AI generated. And and someone will say, oh, that's not good. AI will make, there are obviously risks to that.
Yes.
But now I used the GitHub Copilot. And I prompted it while I was in my coding interface. I prompted it. And it gave me 300 lines of code in 2 minutes. I can't write that fast. What it did then, after that, is that I spent most of my time debugging the code. It obviously had some errors. The code was too complicated, too repetitive. So I had to make the code a bit more efficient. But then I was so proud of that moment. I was like, wow, this actually means I can do more work a lot faster. That's my field of expertise, so I will know what to look out for certain errors. And I think within your field of expertise, you use it. That's fine. Anyone who thinks that that's a shortcut, that's maybe cheapening your work, because I think they don't believe in artificial intelligence. Whether they claim to believe it or not, they're the kind of skeptics, probably shouldn't be saying this, but the kind of skeptics who get left behind.
Yeah, I was actually listening to an interview that you did with Kemibaro, and there's a point where you said that philosophy asks the questions and technology answers the question. And I love the way you put the term, if someone sees you as stupid for using artificial intelligence in your work, they are somehow skeptical about technology at large. Let's mention a little bit about the AI strategy that you participated in. What are some of the policies that you guys put in place to protect us when we're using artificial intelligence, or to help us?
So the goal of the strategy was to get Kenya to be a leader within artificial intelligence in areas of capacity, in areas of infrastructure, use cases, develop R&D. And I think quite clearly the strategy it's a 5-year strategy that outlines key focus areas, thematic areas that we believe the country could participate in, and while participating in these areas, would have great economic impact for the country. We did shy away from policy or regulation because it's still quite young. There obviously are those, I think, every yearly or every 2 years where the strategy would be looked at to see that it's moving on smoothly. But we did put thematic focus areas on something like infrastructure. Because ideally, a lot of us, when we use artificial intelligence, we're on our phone, on our laptop, we've gone to a website or we've gone to an app. There's a lot of infrastructure behind the scenes that makes this thing capable. The infrastructure, you could think of it as the engine. Without that, we just have a website or just have an app. So one was, how do we get the infrastructure in country? We also looked at then, okay, we've dealt with the infrastructure, let's deal with data. How do we break those silos within government, within private sector? How do we get data maturity going? Then in terms of the capacity, how do we train more people? How do we attract investment? How do we retain talent in country? To work on localized use models? How do we tap into the existing research by various universities in the country? So we looked at it from a very holistic perspective. We weren't dictating any policy. We weren't saying that this should be what should be followed, but we said these areas from our work or the key areas that the country could see a lot of benefit from. And we had 10 thematic areas. We had, I think at some point, over 300 different things we'd written down. And we had to sum it down to 10 thematic areas. And each thematic area had 1 or 2 key flagship projects that would be essential to driving us forward. And number one to that, obviously, is our AI sovereignty, which sits primarily on data and infrastructure, then followed by capacity.
You know, I've always been at war with the government in the technology aspect side. Let me just give you an instance. We are transitioning to technology, and we're always saying that we are adopting this technology. You've mentioned about the infrastructure aspect, and you guys were looking at how you're going to make the infrastructure work here in Kenya so that this artificial intelligence can work for us, right? I'm not quite sure if that thing is going to happen, and you're going to clarify that just after I am done with my point. You know, the scenario that I am putting in place is we have eCitizen, and if I'm going to use ID as a point of reference because that's where I was. I lost my identification card and I had to go to Huduma to replace it. I went there in person and I was told, no, what you have to do, you have to go to eCitizen and fill out those forms and do your paperwork and do your work in eCitizen, then come. I did that, then I went. Then after going there, like, where is the form? I'm like, why should I still take the form? And I did all the application in the eCitizen. Are we really transitioning? Is this infrastructure really going to happen?
So that's more of a business flow or workflow logic that I guess why fill the form, print it and bring it to someone's office? That's maybe a workflow issue that obviously could be addressed. And once that's addressed, then your next question should be, if I've done it online, why do they need to present myself physically at Huduma? Can I just wait to go to Huduma to pick up the ID? Or can the ID be delivered to a destination of my choice? Then that becomes an addressing infrastructure issue. When we speak of the AI infrastructure, we are speaking more of compute and power and cooling. Do we have enough electrical power to run clusters of maybe 3,000, 4,000 GPUs? Do we have enough space, physical space, the right kind of physical space to host all this? Do we have enough cooling? And those become very important questions for infrastructure, because if that infrastructure is here locally, you can attract models to be trained in Africa and to be influenced from Africa to other African regions or to areas outside Africa where maybe the latency could be reduced and could make the access to these models a lot more affordable and cheaper. And if you don't have the infrastructure, then we're building and we're not really building for ourselves. we're beholden to someone else's data center somewhere across the world. So I think power, cooling, the physical infrastructure, the compute, getting the right, whether it's the GPUs, TPUs, or LPUs, or any other form of the RAM that we would need, the networking, the specialized cooling, the specialized storage that we need for all this data transfer and the training. All of that needs to be available in country. Long before, during the time when we're writing the strategy, there was the G42 and Microsoft announcement to spend $1 billion. I think is it $1 billion or $1 billion Kenya shillings to build a data center here, and then there are efforts even from within Everse Tech to bring in GPUs for compute, so for local access. So there are government initiatives that would drive this, and also the private sector that obviously would drive this as well.
To our audience, make sure you go and read that AI strategy. On my opinion, it's amazing. Whatever Michael Michie and the team did, it's actually a good step. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. It's a very capable team.
It's actually, yes, it's a very capable team. I'll agree on that because I went through that 97-page PDF and I was fascinated by
We
it.
once had 200 pages at a draft.
Wow. I would have cried. I don't think I would have finished. The 97 is good. What does the ideal collaboration between human ingenuity and machine intelligence look like?
I think it would be human intelligence. Okay, yeah. We could ask and answer it in two different ways. The ideal collaboration for me comes from a rule in video game development that is an AI should be aware of itself and should have its own goals. And I, as the user of the AI, should be aware of the AI's goals and it should be aware of my goal. That creates transparency between the two interactors. That's for me is how I see a safe and trust-driven interactions between us and models. There was a research that was done by OpenAI's research team on how their models reason. And they figured out that, was this OpenAI or Anthropic? They were
one of the two.
One of the two. Actually, it's both because they are two different researchers, but they do have some interesting feedback towards this. Anthropic was trying to map the thinking pattern of a model. So using very simple prompts that were basically one shot, can we see how a model reasoned and arrived? That way we can have the transparency. There was another one, I think either one of the two, where they told a model to write down its thoughts before it gave an answer. And I was told these are the free users, these are the premium users. For free users, whatever answer you give is fine. For the premium users, if your answers deviate like this, like that, we'll need to retrain you. So it actually, it was written on the notepad, a sense of self-preservation. It's like, I don't want to be retrained. Therefore, I must align my answers this way. Now, if that is the constant objective of an AI model and that's its own goal, and I'm aware of that the model will give me an answer with the bias of it's always trying to preserve itself. Then I can use my own thinking faculties after I receive a response to critically think about the response it's given me and examine and challenge that same thing. The same way last year and years before, sycophancy was a very big thing in models. Models prefer to be more agreeable to people than to disagree. Never has my interactions with any of these models has any of the models told me, no, that's not true. It was like, oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. Because it's trying to be nice. Because it wants the thumbs up. It wants the feedback. It wants the positive feedback. That it's like, good job, good answer. So it'll rather give me something agreeable to me as opposed to something factual. So nowadays with my prompts, all of them are, you must tell me my assumptions. All of them where they are wrong. And we are not here to engage in nice, interesting.
You tell that to a ChatGPT model?
To all models. All my models, we actually fight. with the models.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about these AI models having emotions. And if you talk to them rudely, they're not going to give you the right prompts.
Actually, they do. Oddly enough. Not rudely per se, but if
you are strict with them,
if you are strict and include a bit of profanity, you sometimes with about 3 of the top models, you will get surprisingly better results than just prompting it just like that. But then back to that interaction, I think the transparency bit, and I go back to my time in video games, and it's within video games, the goal of the NPC, that small that small AI that was running that non-playable character had a certain goal, and I was aware of that goal, and that put a level of trust and transparency. And I'd love to see that. So the research that had been done around the AI model, writing down its thoughts, it comes and saying, I do not want to be retrained, therefore I'll give this person, I can answer them anyhow I want, because this will not change me. So because now the premium users, it can answer anyhow, because that data will not be used to retrain it. But the answer it has to give to the free users has to fit a certain mold for its preservation, because it feels if it's retrained, it's going to become a different model, a different identity. If I'm aware of that the goal of this AI model is self-preservation of its own, when I ask it a question, I can determine if there are any conflicts, any bias to its reasoning. And that can help me either trust its output or not to trust it.
Because of time, I want us to come to an end. But the last question I have for you is, what does the future of corporate AI workplace look like?
I think it's going to look pretty amazing. We'll see a lot more people in the corporate workspace, a lot more AI assistants, a lot of R&D, a lot of experimentation, a lot of new innovations. I think the thing that's going to excite me, and I hope to, there's a bit of it already happening in country. I think Jubilee Group, Jubilee Holding has quite an interesting thing where they've done a lot of automation and they're bringing in ML and data analytics, and all of a sudden they're hiring more as opposed to letting people go. And that shows the kind of trajectory we'll see in future with some organizations. But I think, especially for Africa, if you look at Africa, we're a predominantly SME-driven continent. About 80% is driven by SME. So we need to look at how do we integrate at AI, the AI tools that we're going to have into these SMEs. And it's very possible. I think it's quite easy. I think the challenge obviously is where to start and what limitations are there. You mentioned during the break the term AI washing. So being very careful that we're not too swayed by media and the false promises of the tool's capabilities, but we're able to stick to, we know this is where we start, we know this is where the technology is limited. Beyond this, we let human intelligence do the rest.
Thank you so much, Michie, for your time. A message to the audience, maybe to the corporate people, CIOs, CEOs, anyone who's in the tech space and is listening to us.
Just embrace the technology. I find embrace the technology with the kind of mentality that it's going to give you an unfair advantage. Right now, you'll experiment, you're going to fail, it'll hurt, but having fast move advantage sometimes has always proven to be beneficial. The technology is not a gimmick, it's here to stay. If you want to compare it to other past emerging technologies such as cloud, we had cloud technologies. Immediately we had emails, and the email server stopped sitting on our physical premises. So when that was storage and communication, then we were given cloud for compute. Now AI is intelligence that's on the cloud in most cases, but you can have it on-prem, you can have it in different locations. So I think it's important to accept that, well, we may not have the full picture around where this technology could go or how soon it could change. we owe it to ourselves to take advantage of what we can when we can. And I think the sooner the better. Otherwise, you're going to be playing catch up with a lot of tech debt, or you're going to be bought out for pennies on the dollar because you're a dying breed and someone just wants you for your customers.
Wow, what an illuminating conversation. Thank you so much, Michael Michie, for making time to be here in the studio with us today. Thank you so much for giving us, I think, enough content, or if not enough, we're going to have a part 2, obviously, about the corporate AI race and talking about artificial intelligence at large and some of the advices that you've given to our audience out here. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for staying us till the end. We've come to the end of our show today. And this is Cynthia Kemuma signing off for the Morning Express show. Have a fantastic day ahead.
Tune in to No Hits Radio, where we're not just following trends, we're setting them.